morning, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. Many thanks to IAMovement for showing me Trinidad hospitality and also giving me the opportunity to make the Green Infrastructure Conference just a little bit blue. I also donated my glasses to King Neptune while I was in the field last week, so I will try my best, but if you see me squinting, it's because I can't really see what I'm reading, so please bear with me a little bit. I'm going to talk about blue and circular economies and also a little bit about my work at UNESCO IOC, based on the Ocean Decade Task Force work that we're doing. In the beginning of my slides, I do have some background information on carbon credits, et cetera, et cetera. But Michaela did such a great job in refreshing our memory, and especially Mr. Kumra Singh yesterday did a great job in sort of framing the context and background of carbon credits, blue bonds, and debt for nature swaps. So I will go through those slides quite quickly so that the screen doesn't yell at me too hard when my time is up, and really focus on some of the work that we're doing in the wider Caribbean region. So blue finance and ocean conservation, in that space, blue carbon markets are really the poster child for sustainably financing these projects. So what is it really? Is it carbon markets, credits, offsets? But I think it's important to note that a carbon credit is a financial instrument that represents ownership of 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent that can be traded, sold, and or retired. And this has to be verified. We heard a lot about measurement, verification, so the MRV processes. So that's really what the focus is in terms of carbon credits. And a carbon offset more broadly refers to a tool used by emitters to compensate for their greenhouse gas emissions by paying for initiatives which reduce emissions in other ways, typically outside of the 4 walls of the company. But this is not always verified. We also heard a lot about high quality, so that these processes and these projects that focus on carbon offsetting, et cetera, have to be high quality, but what does high quality really mean? We heard a lot about this yesterday, so I'll just very briefly do a refresh. So it means it has to be real, additional, measurable, verifiable, unique, and something that I did not hear enough about during the past day or day and a half. It also has to be permanent. So the credits must represent permanent emission reductions and removals for at least 100 years. And if this is not possible, when projects carry a risk of reversibility, at minimum, adequate safeguards must be put in place. In terms of high quality blue carbon, it must result in safeguarding nature. It has to empower people. It has to employ the best information interventions and carbon accounting practices. It has to operate locally and contextually, and it has to mobilize high integrity capital. And I cannot emphasize enough the importance of that high integrity component. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this slide. There are various types of blue carbon projects or blue carbon initiatives that can be implemented. Sort of the 3 standard nature-based solutions are based on salt marshes, mangrove ecosystems, and seagrasses. So many of the projects that are currently ongoing are focusing on these 3 primary ecosystems. But there's also some nascent projects and some emergent projects that we're also working on. I think for the region, what is very interesting is some of the work that we've been doing in terms of tracking the carbon sequestration potential of sea moss, especially in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada and St. Lucia, that has a very active sea moss farming community. Tracking the blue carbon sequestration potential can add to sort of the economic benefits of the sea moss production. And I'm convinced that my wife and I became parents in our 40s right after the site visit to the St. Lucia sea moss farm for obvious reasons. And then also, what I'm particularly interested in, also because of my background working with large marine megafauna, specifically sharks and whales, some of the functions that predators, so ocean predators, give in terms of the support that they give in blue carbon ecosystems. It's very interesting. It's an emergent type of blue carbon sequestration work that we're doing in the region. But for example, the seagrass meadows, which are now being monetized or the credits are being developed for in the Bahamas. We were able to establish those seagrass meadows based on some work that we have been doing with tiger sharks in the Bahamas. So we attached satellite tracking systems and video systems, and based on the analysis of the data that we were able to get back from the tiger sharks, we discovered some of the large seagrass meadows that we are now developing carbon sequestration methods for. Similarly with whales, we're working with the government of Dominica to develop a sequestration program for their new sperm whale sanctuary. And if anyone is interested in the specific scientific methodology, it'll involve a week of collecting sperm whale shit and analyzing it to see what the carbon sequestration potential for that is. But there are just a few things to note. This is just one tool and not a silver bullet. It has to operate on a case-by-case basis. The appropriate conditions must be met. The global standards of high environmental and social integrity must be applied, and only scientifically agreed upon ecosystems and terrestrial habitats can be measured at this point. So we're now working on developing some of the products for some of these emergent and nascent products. And one of the things you really have to focus on during my discussions that I have with sort of regional actors in the space, you must be very much aware of greenwashing, because the vultures are circling. And then there, I'm going to get screamed at by the screen pretty soon, but I'll continue regardless, my apologies. There are also other blue finance models, debt conversion, blue bonds, debt conversions. I'm not going to go through the whole slide, but it's important to note that it requires long-term conservation planning. Very important is community engagement and also political commitments. There's $500 billion in developing country debt that is potentially eligible for conversions, 30 billion of which is in the Latin America and Caribbean region. This is a slide that I involuntarily, well, he's not aware that I took it from him, but it's a slide developed by my friend Dr. Peter Edwards from Jamaica, who works at the Pew Charitable Trust, who does quite a bit of work in blue bonds. And it's important to note that if you want to use blue bonds, it does present an opportunity for island and coastal nations to reinvest in natural resources, but the typical steps in developing this includes conservation commitments, sustainable financing, which we will get in later, but definitely, and I'm going to shamelessly plug a project that I'm working with together with IOC UNESCO in developing marine spatial planning tools for the Caribbean and Latin American region. So that brings us to the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, the organization which I'm very proud to represent. So CBF provides sustainable financing for projects within the Caribbean region to protect the lands and waters on which all of our life depends. Our mission, and I'm going to get a little bit closer because I can't read what the screen is saying, is to ensure continuous funding for conservation and sustainable development in the Caribbean, and the vision is a Caribbean region where both our natural environment and our people thrive. Within CBF, there are 3 programs. There's the Nature-Based Economies program through the Advancing Circular Economies facility managed by Trinidad's very own Rachel Ramsey. There's a climate change program through the Ecosystem-Based Adaptations facility. And then there's a conservation finance program, of which I am a part of, which in addition to supporting some of the projects that are being implemented through that program, also provides sustainable financing to the National Conservation Trust Funds of the 11 countries that are part of the Conservation Finance Program. I'm going to put a little bit of a spotlight on the Caribbean Blue Economy financing, so the Blue Effing project and the eBay Carbon Accounting project. So what is ecosystem-based adaptation? The Convention on Biological Diversity says it is the use of biodiversity and ecosystem services as part of an overall adaptation strategy to help people adapt to the impacts of climate change. And I'm going to pause here to shout out to my colleague Shanna Prevost, who is part of the ecosystem-based adaptation program at CBF. Thank you, Shanna, for being here as well. What is the ecosystem-based? I noticed that we're continuing our poetic theme. So it is a project of the International Climate Initiative with a strategic objective to sustainably manage EPA supporting marine and coastal zone habitats, including rehabilitating key high biodiversity ecosystems and incorporating social and economic resilience to climate change. As part of the EBA program, we recently because it's the CBF institution. We recently developed a program where there was a carbon estimate system for CBF and EBA facility projects, which was actually led by the Pan American Development Foundation, who you would have heard from earlier, with the objective to design carbon measurement system for EBA facility projects and building capacity on the carbon measurement system for EBA grantees. So it's not quite yet to develop a financial mechanism surrounding that, but it is a way for EBA grantees to be able to already track their carbon estimates for the projects that they are involved in. So in terms of the Caribbean Bluefin project, the project that I have the pleasure to lead, it is a 4-year project. It started in April 2023. I came on board in January 2024. It is funded with $6 million from the Global Environmental Facility. It is implemented by UNEP, executed by the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, and the objective is to create and strengthen nature-based blue economy opportunities and approaches through innovative financial mechanisms. And initially, my 5 project countries are the Dominican Republic, the Bahamas, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Grenada, but I will talk a little bit more about upscaling and socializing the project in the next few slides. So how will we implement? We cannot overstate the importance of public-private partnerships, which are critical in enabling investments and integrating private sector into the development of these financial mechanisms, which I will talk about. And it's also aligned with the broader environmental and economic policies. And the project, at this point, tries to position itself to use the blue economy as a catalyst for sustainable growth. I'm going to talk very briefly about the project scope and components. So component 1 is the development and piloting out of these sustainable blue economy financial mechanisms. There are 3 financial mechanisms which have been established to begin with. The first, of course, is carbon sequestration potential. So we're working with the Macote wetland in St. Lucia and also some of the wetlands in the Dominican Republic to pilot some of these works out. But the other components or the other mechanisms that we're rolling out is the development of a blue credit card and also to develop a system to access user fees on an online platform so that people can pay for the MPA user fees should they access that ecosystem. And then I'm very excited to talk about sort of the scaling up and socialization of the project through the development of a sustainable blue finance hub, which will act as a centralized platform to support the growth of sustainable marine-related businesses and startups, and then also through the development of knowledge sharing and replication to disseminate knowledge and best practices to foster learning and replication of successful blue economy initiatives. And I'm very excited to announce that Ernst & Young, based here in Trinidad, has won that contract. So I'm looking forward to working with the team at Ernst & Young to roll out the socialization and scaling up of this project regionally. And then now, because I don't have much top cover, I'm going to put on my other hat that's related to my activities based at UNESCO IOC Caribe. And I'm going to really focus on the development of the roadmap for the implementation of the Ocean Decade activities in the tropical America and the Caribbean. So I know time is up, I'm getting there. So the roadmap for the Ocean Decade in the tropical Americas and the Caribbean region establishes a framework for just, inclusive, and impactful ocean science actions, aligning with regional priorities with global Ocean Decade goals while addressing local challenges. And I think that's really important that we're really focusing on some of the local challenges that we have here in the region, not only in the Caribbean, but also in Latin America, to ensure that some of the activities of the Ocean Decade are implemented effectively across the board. We had a meeting in Costa Rica right after SIDS 4, that's why we all look so rough dry in Antigua, where we validated the roadmap and we came up with 10 priorities addressing marine pollution, ecosystem-based management, small-scale fisheries, sustainable ocean plans, and climate-resilient ocean economies. And then it was supposed to be 1 to 10, but it's 2 times 5, can't figure it out. And also climate change, adaptation and mitigation, coastal resilience, innovative financing, ocean literacy, and ocean and human health. And then we are developing an implementation strategy focused heavily on collaboration, capacity development, policy alignment, and resource mobilization. And the next step is developing the resource mobilization plan and continuing to foster collaborative partnerships and cooperating with various institutions, MEAs, et cetera, across the board. And then, of course, the implementation, implementing a monitoring, evaluation, and learning framework. Often we have M&E processes, but the learning component is absent, but we really focused on including the learning component to that as well. And with that, that's it. Thank you very much.